So today I wanted to talk about Guilty Gear again and get more into some of the decisions and kind of like talk about what I expect the game will be like and what some of these changes will actually end up meaning. I didn't have time to really like dig into the changes on the stream and think too much about like how the game could change, what the gameplay could be like, you know, that kind of stuff. Last night and today I've been thinking a lot about a lot of the design decisions and like where the game will probably end up and why I think some of the changes could be okay. I don't know that all of them will be okay, and I don't know if I'm even right about the intention of some of these changes, but I do know that thinking about it, I can see the ideas about some of these changes and what their goal probably is. Could be okay, I think, is a very fair sentiment to give. I don't know how I'm going to end up feeling about the game once I try it, and I don't know if any of the stuff that I'm thinking about will be correct when I get my hands on the game, or even to the final version of the game if it stays this way. So when I think about this video game here, Guilty Gear, it seems to me like a lot of the choices that they made in changing stuff was designed around not only trying to simplify in the sense that like they don't want you to have a million options that kind of do a little bit of everything. They want your choices to be very straightforward. Like, hey, if you want to do this, that's what this move is for. If you want to do this, that's what this is for, right? I think that that's a lot of the stuff that I've seen here with changes. And I think the changes that I would like to highlight and show examples of that, and I'll start with defensive stuff, is the FD changes and the IB changes. What is the point of these mechanics now is what I was thinking. What did they change about it, and what's the point of using this now? So if you don't know, before in Guilty Gear, faultless defense was used for a lot of shit. Mainly, one of the things that you would do is when you were moving and stuff, you would do what's called an FD break. So let's say you're running across the ground and you want to stop moving and block. You couldn't just stop in the middle of your run in Guilty Gear. You would have to use faultless defense and tap it for a second to stop your momentum and make your character freeze. It would cost you a little bit of meter, and you would have to do an FD to stop moving. So one of the things they did is they removed that. They made it so that blocking mid-dash is possible without FD. You don't have to use it anymore. Maybe it's still there to stop your momentum or something, but they made it so you don't have to do it. They also made it so that FD is not what makes you able to block in the air. And before, if you wanted to block in the air in Guilty Gear, you had to also use faultless defense. So they've changed the way that faultless defense is currently used in the game. The main thing that it's used for is when you're blocking against someone and you faultless defense, you gain additional space as you block normals. The other one is you can still use faultless defense while blocking in the air. You don't need to do it to block. It just makes it so that if you do air block, you take less risk gauge. The way they've changed these mechanics now, the goal was probably to make it so that the purpose of these tools is more clear and more focused on what they actually do. Faultless defense is for pushing yourself away from your opponent when you're blocking and blocking in the air and not gaining a lot of risk gauge. Faultless defense is not for being able to air block, removing chip and pushing yourself away. Stopping momentum when you're jumping or when you're moving on the ground. Run up FD into throw. You know, before that was something you had to do. If you want to run up to somebody and throw them, you couldn't just like run up and throw very easily. You'd have to run up, faultless defense, break, throw. The goal of it is to make that mechanic more clear. They're like, FD does this. This is what it does. Right? And IB does this. This is what it does. It's not for 10 different things. They're really trying to make it clear that the mechanic is only for this specific situation. And same thing with instant block. So IB or instant block now, the way it works primarily is you block right as an attack is hitting you. And in Guilty Gear, in the current version, when you do that, reduced pushback is what it does. It keeps you closer a lot of times, and then it changes the frame data on things you block. So if something is like 0 or slightly plus and you instant block it, it will be negative in a lot of cases. So now instant block has a more specific purpose. And that on defense is to build meter when you're instant blocking. And I hope it makes it so you build a lot of meter, because otherwise I don't understand exactly why the IB change is there. So the way that you have to design around things is also different, right? It's not just, well, this move, if it's IB, it is negative. So to defeat this move, you need to IB it. You know, there's certain characters like that, right? Like Leo is a good example of you need to be able to IB a lot of his stuff or you're going to be in trouble. Yeah, I don't know if IB continues on like before where you have more risk gauge while you're IBing, because in this game that would be extremely dangerous, right? So I was thinking about these two changes in particular, the FD change and the IB change and the dead angle change. And I was imagining a defensive situation in this game and what the defensive player, would do in a block string in Guilty Gear and what my choices are now with the new mechanics. And let's say I'm defending against like a character like Soul. While defending against a character like Soul, I had to make defensive choices about what I wanted to do. And I was trying to think like, Are these defensive choices like more like too simple? Is there still options for me? What do I feel like my options would be on defense? The first thing is I don't want to block this full block string into Gunflame or whatever he's going to do to gain a bunch of risk gauge, right? Because when you gain risk gauge in this game, you're at a big disadvantage because if you get hit, it's a huge counter hit and I can just die. So let's say I have meter in this game and I'm defending against Soul. What are my options? Okay, well, the first option is I can FD his block string. And by FDing his block string, I'm spending meter defensively, but I'm choosing to create more space between me and Soul. It could be because I get pushed out to a range where I can whiff punish something in his Gatling. Or I can be pushed out really far and Soul's a character who has a command throw. Or I just get moved away and if he shoots a Gunflame at the end, I have a far move that hits, that'll hit through it. Or I can instant air dash and punish the Gunflame at the end because I have enough space. So that's why I would choose the Faultless Defense. It has a specific purpose here. And it's not that different than why I would choose to FD before in a block string against Soul. The second thing is I could choose to instant block it. Let's say that I'm playing a character that I'm not that scared of Soul, actually. I kind of want to get in. And when I do get in, or when I try to get in, I need meter to run some kind of offense. I need to shoot some fireball. I need to RC to slow him down. I need to, I need 50 meter to get some combo because I need to make a comeback or something. Maybe I would want to instant block this string. And it leaves me, the defender, at a more disadvantaged position because I obviously am going to eat the risk and I'm not going to get pushed away from this block string. But I'm choosing to IB because I want the reward of building meter. So that's a choice I can make as a defender. The next choice is if I have 50 meter, I can use the new RC, the dead angle replacement. Let's say that I'm a character that has really powerful pressure and I don't want to even gain space between me and Soul. I will spend the dead angle and I will just use the red RC and I will just use that to create immediate pressure instead. I think that the mechanics of this version of gear, to me, sound like all three of those decisions are reasonable. Depending on the situation, I might do any of those three options. It seems like the defensive choices I'd make are still pretty varied. They have a more particular purpose than maybe they did before. Maybe it was a little bit more ambiguous about what the correct choice was in each scenario. But now I have different choices I can make, and each of them do a very specific thing. The thing about dead angle is, it definitely, because it's universal, it's very different from before where different dead angles were useful or not so useful depending on the character or whatever, right? So that's something that I was thinking about a situation specifically in this game. As a defensive player, I still have a lot of choice to make. And even though it's like more simplified, you still are rotating between a number of options. So to me, thinking about that, it doesn't seem that bad. I don't know how it actually is in the game or anything like that. But when I think about the choices that I still have to make rotating in that one block string, I still think that there's enough player choice there compared to most of the games that I think I'm okay. The other thing that I was really frustrated by on my initial glance was this one. Grounded normals are air blockable without FD. I think I'm very frustrated with the change that there's no anti-air buttons at all. The only way to hit someone who's just holding up would be to like jump and air throw them. The only way that someone would get hit while jumping is if they hit a button and you anti-air the button. And I don't know if I like this change. However, I think that there's a way to make this change fine. And it's the way that they've done it is to make it so that if you block in the air without an FD, you get a lot of risk gauge, right? And I think that to me that is a decent way to balance it as long as you make having high risk extremely dangerous. So that way there isn't just no punishment for jumping all the time. And it's clear that a lot of the intentional choices in this is built around making having high risk scary. Most of the high damage comes off counter hits. So that's like, fine. It's not a change that I like, and I wish that there was a universal. I wish there were certain buttons that were anti-airs and stuff, but it's not gonna destroy how much I like the game. Someone says Axel though. Someone was like, well, I don't see how would Axel function in this game like this. I think he ends up being very good, actually. Imagine if you're playing against Axel and you're like, dude, I don't even need to I don't even need to FD in the air. Every time I jump, he's just tagging me with this button, but I can just block it every time. And then all of a sudden your risk gauge is glowing. And you try to do something and you hit a button and he just goes boom and hits you with something from full screen that does 30%. And you're like, oh shit, maybe I should jump FD. They're trying to balance around that risk gauge being a big threat, right? That's the way it works. Somebody said that one of the devs mentioned that maybe there will be anti-air options that will be added, like air unblockable moves. I hope it's not just like one move is always the anti-air. Because some characters have minis. 6P is, you know, an anti-air for some characters, but maybe some characters use 5K or 2K, like Axel can 2K and like anti-air or low profile stuff, right? UI will be completely revamped. That should be the least of your worries. All right, how about you link me to the article where Arxis says, hey, we're going to completely revamp the UI and it's going to be completely fixed. I was at BET for Street Fighter V 6 months before it came out, and I said to them, hey, Birdie's chain floats through his body in the loading screen and in the game. Are you going to look into the clipping? And they said, hey, man, don't worry about the clipping. All right, don't worry about the clipping. It'll definitely be fixed when the game comes out. Why are you even complaining about the clipping, bro? Are you stupid? They were very upset with me that I even brought it up, and I said, my bad. And it's 2019, 4 years later, and the clipping is still going through his body. They said, no, that bug will be fixed all the way by then. And when I saw Marvel Infinite, I said, God, this character select screen is ugly. I'm sure it'll get fixed. We saw BB Tag. We said, yeah, you know, I'm sure BB Tag's character select screen will get changed. This is ugly. It's just for the demo. It's just worth mentioning, just in case they wanted to stick with it. Because if this UI is final, all you motherfuckers better drop a tier 3 sub in the chat to me for wasting my time posting it's not final 100 times a day. Anyway, one of the things that I immediately saw and I wasn't so sure about very, very early was this one. Generally speaking, combos from overheads are not possible mid-screen. This is like a change that I saw that I was very surprised about. A lot of the mix-ups in Guilty Gear, you get hit by extremely fast high-low mix-ups all the time. You know, you get put in a really bad spot where you just have to guess about some horrible late air dash or not, or low, or whatever. However, a lot of the focus on this game is about cranking risk gauge, and when you have risk gauge, you have counter hit status, which is the homing follow-up is only available on counter hit for dust attacks. And the idea about dust attacks is that they tried to make them faster so that they're generally like kind of a real mix-up tool. So it seems to me like the idea between this now is they want most characters when they're going to run high-low to be thinking about super dirty 8-bit mix-ups. Thanks very much. They want most characters to be looking into doing something like a dust attack to open you up high when you have high risk. And when the risk gauge is cranked really high, it's in the state where the next hit's going to be counter hit. You run up and it's dust or low, 50-50. Or if you're a command throw character, your soul, you run up and you just wild throw them. And then they're like, oh shit. And then you run up again and you go low or you go overhead or whatever it is. So it seems like they've kind of tried to make it so that most characters run offense in a very similar way, in the sense that the goal is to crank risk gauge and then either force a mix up between dust, regular throw, command throw, you know, low, whatever it is, right? It's going to end up being a high damaging mix up no matter what, because if you get a low counter hit into a special move, into an RC, into a combo, it's probably going to do 40% like we saw in the fucking demo already. It seems to me like maybe the goal is going to end up being that every character's dust is their main overhead mix-up option. And I hope that's not the case. I hope that there is good mix-up options for other characters with other moves in their toolkit. Because it is, honestly, it says, generally speaking. And a character like Ino, without, you know, fast, like her hover dash or something, would be so weird, right? A lot of this game is definitely built around fishing for counter hits and baiting throws. There's a new move for Kai that just goes over low attacks and beats throws, one of his new moves. And a lot of this seems to be like, they want to focus on the fact that Guilty Gear has big moments, right? It's just these big ass, you hit somebody with counter hit Fafnir, and it's like, oh shit, you're going to explode. And then you get this big damage moment or whatever, right? And then they just run up and they're going to run whatever they're going to run. Do I think the Street Fighter V comparisons are warranted? Honestly, I'm not sure. It seems pretty clear that there is an emphasis on counter hits, but I don't know if I buy that comparison to crush counters. This is kind of similar, but it's more around like they wanted to make blocking scary, but also they wanted to make it so that they don't have, you know, these crazy overheads and lows and stuff. So they had to give you some reward for running offense or forcing someone to block. That's not just, we have these crazy unseeable overheads and lows, right? What do I think about the Gatling changes? Weird. I think the Gatling changes are very surprising to me. And I think the idea is to make it so that you have more defined block strings with every character. And I don't know why that's the idea that they want to go with. It is a weird change to me. The other thing about Oki in this game, right, is I think that it's pretty clear that they try to do something in particular with knockdowns, which is they want you to make a choice when you get a hit. And the choice is generally going to be Do you want damage that resets you back to neutral, or do you want to take the lower damaging option that hard knockdowns into sweep and you run some kind of offense? So instead of making it so that you get both, like Guilty Gear currently does a lot of the time, instead of making it so that you get both where, well, you get your corner carry and good damage and now you got to guess, it's, hey, in most cases, you're probably going to have to choose. Or do you even just 2D them and then take the guaranteed follow-up hit after that pushes them full screen but does a lot of damage? That's one thing that we've seen is when you OTG someone with a move, it doesn't seem to scale very much, so you just do big ass damage and you can knock them away. So to me, the thing that they're trying to do is remove the complexity over some of their mechanics and make the mechanics more direct with how they work and make the choices like this exist just the way that they existed before, but with less complexity around them and more you choose. Would you like this or would you like that? Not, well, you have to figure out in a convoluted way how to get what you want. For me, I like it the old way, where there's a lot of brain power and time and effort that goes into figuring out both. This way will take less of that, but it's like a more streamlined solution to the same thing. It seems like these are design choices, though, that the more I look at these design choices, the more I see that these will probably become more and more standard with each and every fighting game release. I think it's much more likely that they will remove the complexity of some of the options into just making the complex part the choice. And I think that can be good, but I think you also risk the best option just being done over and over and over anyway. Removing the execution of it or removing like the extra stress on the brain about thinking about where it's going to be is unfortunate to me, because the fun part about fighting games is not just picking the best option over and over, it's also having to execute it. And if the execution requirement doesn't exist for the player, or if the choice is always easy, then you would just make the best choice every time. And if it's not hard to execute, or if there's not enough options that you feel like you have to constantly rotate them, then it'll end up being too simple, I think. I've seen a lot of fighting game designers reply that they really think that the Guilty Gear changes are good. Yeah, this is a tweet I saw about Keats, which was, it's possible to lower a game's skill floor without lowering the skill ceiling. I think that that's probably true. We talked about Tekken yesterday. The skill floor for Tekken mashing is definitely very effective, right? It's that kind of a game where, like, even if you play a lot of fighting games, if you're good at other fighting games, you'll go to Tekken and some guy just swinging like a maniac is going to give you trouble. And it doesn't necessarily have to have an effect on the skill ceiling. Similarly, it is possible to simplify a game without homogenizing it. I think that's probably true too, but you have to be very careful about that. He says, it's also possible to increase depth by removing options. I think that this is true too. Let's say a game has 100 options and 5 of them are extremely powerful and degenerate. You just can ignore 95 options and just do the 5 that are very powerful over and over and over and over. But if a game has 25 options and 15 of them are powerful, it is a game that has less options than the other game by 75%. However, you've tripled the amount of options that are good and that you use frequently. So in that case, I think it is possible to remove options but increase depth if you make the decision making or the execution or whatever else there is there possible. And he says all of the above is difficult but absolutely possible. And I agree. I think I agree with all of these. However, I don't know if I think Guilty Gear is hitting all these spots for me. Yeah, I forgot about, when I was talking about FD, I forgot to talk about the fact that you can't chip kill anymore. So that's another part of FD's decision making that's gone. I forgot to mention that earlier. FD is also to avoid chip kill. And I totally forgot to mention that is an important thing that they removed off of it. FD had like 8 things it could be used for, and they've tried to consolidate it into like 2. The thing for me is I don't mind chip kills. And I think it depends on the game whether chip kills need to exist or not. I'm a little worried that every game is not going to have chip kills. And I think that that's a decision that should not be made like, okay, well, not having chip kills is great. I think it should really depend on the game and how it's designed, whether chip kills is important for the game or not. Based on what I've seen, I'm not sure if it is doing a good job of removing options but making depth still feel really, really good in the game or not. I honestly have no idea. It's just one of those things where we have to play it and see it. I'm definitely a little concerned. I'm on the fence. I'm not convinced that the game will be much, much worse for these changes, and I'm also not convinced that these are the right changes. What worries me is that the initial reaction to this from consumers is very negative. But the reaction from developers is, wow. Or some developers, not all of them. But some developers that I've seen on fighting game Twitter is, wow, they did a great job. If those two thoughts don't line up, that's worrying either way, maybe. My thing is, though, is that this game is very, very, very early, and none of you motherfuckers have played it. I haven't played it either. So how good or bad the game is, or whether these changes are good or not, or how deep the game is, or any of that, who knows? It's not always just about the people who are like very, very good at games that will give you a good opinion. It's not just that. It's people who understand where the game could go or how the game might be played and stuff like that. That will be important. This game is completely different from how Guilty Gear Rev 2 is. So if, for instance, we think that some change is extremely, I can't believe they made it so that chip kills is so bad. Like we were just talking about how chip kills is, oh man, maybe in this game, you know, getting a chip kill would be way too easy with the current design choices. So this is why they've changed it or something, right? Who knows? I can't even make it to Arc Revo, unfortunately. Dude, I got smoked twice in a row. First, I accepted the Canada Cup gig. I was like, hey, I'm going to be going to Canada Cup. So I locked in. I got everything booked for it. I was all ready. Then I got a little ring. Hello. Are you available for the first ever gameplay reveal of Guilty Gear 2020? Can you play Guilty Gear for the very first time? And I was like, no, I can't. I'm going to Canada Cup. Then I was like, all right, well, don't worry. It'll be at Arc Revo. So no problem. I'll be able to go to Arc Revo. I checked the calendar. Hey, Sajam, are you ready to go to the North America Regional Finals that same weekend? I was like, I'll see you guys there. Oh, man. I'll see you guys there. Starve and play GG2020 for the culture. It'd be like that. Sometimes you gotta work, dude. It's hard because on one hand, there's a lot of complicated shit in fighting games that people love, and it's hard to separate whether that's actually complications for a good gameplay experience or complications that we just are used to. Simplifications in the pursuit of making the game better are good, but if the simplifications are just in pursuit of bringing people in because you hope that the game is simple enough for new players to like, but we'll have to see if that's the case for this game, right? Hanzo tweeted, I think JP Dev's looking to simplify and homogenize gameplay rather than investing in a suite of modes, features that would invariably enhance the product is so backwards it hurts. Net play tutorials, story mode, fun modes, etc. are all tossed to the curb. The usernames? Fucking Hanzo. It was fucking Lord Hydra Dick last night and he changed it again. I think a lot of people feel this way about fighting games in general. Somebody brought up something that I thought was really interesting, where I was talking about yesterday, why can't they let Guilty Gear still be their complicated game? I thought about that, and you know what I think? I think that their intention is that Guilty Gear still is their complicated game. I think by comparison to the other games, their hope is still that Guilty Gear remains the most complicated game they have. But BlazBlue, though, I mean, the newest version of BlazBlue is BB Tag, and I'm sure the next BlazBlue that comes out will be like that. Is Eunice gonna be the only real anime game now? What stops this from being a real anime game? This is the point that I'm making. I don't love all the changes on paper so far, but I also don't think that this is the end of Guilty Gear and it's gonna be a casual bad game. It's different. It's gonna be a lot different than old Guilty Gear, but we'll see. You guys are like, Arxis betrayed me. They betrayed me. I'll never trust them again. They've killed Guilty Gear, and you guys haven't even tried it. You guys know, just like me, I don't want the game to be super simple and bad and awful and stuff. You guys are just like me. I feel the same way as you. I've been playing fighting games forever. I don't want fighting games to suddenly remove or lower the skill ceiling and be very bad. Give me my Oki. Yeah, you chip players, you gotta feel bad about this game, huh? You got no teleports, you got no Oki. You got no stupid double jump, or you got no stupid fucking 2-hit jump H, 2K. Fuck you. Chip players, you bitches. 2020 Gamma Blade? Yeah, get fucking owned. Teleport YRC, knockdown, neutral jump H. Fuck you guys. Has Tasty Steve weighed in yet? I don't know, but I'll tell you exactly what Tasty Steve would say. He would go, I see exactly what they were trying to do. The game is I don't know how it feels yet because I haven't played it, but it's very obvious what they're trying to do with this game. And it's going to be different because it's going to be more like run up, see what you're going to do. Oh, you're going to jump, get them out the air. So I see exactly what they're looking for. It feels very guilty. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Plus R. That's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of Plus R. Dude, because back in that game, and that's exactly what he would tell you. And y'all motherfuckers know how Steve is. He's going to play this shit, and he's going to fucking be all about it. He's that kind of guy. He's not over here, oh no, Guilty Gear's dead, it's over. He's been playing Guilty Gear since all you motherfuckers were before you were born. He's going to be just fine. I wish I could just love life like Steve. I know. It's hard, isn't it? He's 10 years older than me, and he'll live 20 years longer than me. And I guarantee you, Moste, save this clip right now. I guarantee you he's going to say, yeah, I played it. It felt good, man. I see exactly what they were doing. I see exactly what they're going for. I know what kind of game they're trying to do. It reminds me of this. Just wait. Just wait. You think he's a reliable source? I mean, he'll have played the game. That makes him a more reliable source than all you motherfuckers on the internet. Tasty Steve's love cannot be bought. I'll tell you right now. Although, I will tell you something. If he ever talks to you about a movie and he says it's actually not that bad, that movie was a bag of dicks. It was the worst movie of all time. I'll let you know. And I'll also let you know that WRG Cave is very nice for dropping the Twitch Prime. Thanks very much. This guy, Tasty Steve, I'll be like, how was X-Men Phoenix or whatever the fuck? And he said to me, this is actually what he said. He goes, you know what? I thought that movie was going to be worse. It's actually not that bad. He's like, well, the first 30 minutes were some of the worst shit I ever seen in my life. And the last hour, he's like, bro, they were real X-Men. They were working like a team. It was like, Scott, look over there. Bam. Like, it was sick. And I was like, so you're saying the first 30 minutes were literally awful. And your overall review of the movie is it's not that bad. But the last hour, they were working as a team, so you liked it. Or he's not even the last hour, the last like 30 minutes. He's like, yeah, Steve, this movie sounds awful. He's like, it's not that bad. And I was like, oh. He said he fell asleep in the first hour like 3 times. Yes, Ringe was there. We were in the parking structure of Wednesday Night Fights. He fell asleep in the first hour 3 times and said the movie wasn't that bad. I asked him about Batman versus Superman years ago, and he said, it was bad, but you gotta watch it. What does that mean? It was bad, but you gotta see it. Did he tell you he sees what they were going for with that movie, Ringe? Did he tell you he knew what they were trying to do? He's 100% said that? I'm shocked. He hated that movie. He was like, bro, that Martha shit was the stupidest shit I've ever seen. But they did that. It did some stuff right. I see what they were going for. Fucking Steve, man.